What is up, YouTube fam? Robbie C here. Today we are at Dynamic Disc Iron City, and I'm going to be honest, we're going to make quite a few enemies today. Not intentionally, but just trying to be honest so that you guys can have the freedom to say what you're feeling, what you're truly feeling while you're out there in the disc golf space. So let me become the scapegoat of the disc golf world for the next few minutes. We're going to talk about my least favorite discs and why it's okay if you dislike a disc as well. So in honor of the pig, how are you doing today, Rick? Are you having a good one?
So catch me if I fall.
If I were to give an approximate number, I would say there is at least more than 12 discs that exist in the world, but no more than 100,000. So regardless of where the actual number lands in there is a lot of options when it comes to choosing a disc that fits your game. And that is one of the best parts about disc golf, is that it's not about, oh yeah, every single person out there has to have a nuke. Every person out there, if you want to throw far, you have to drop a bomb with the nuke. For some people, the nuke is just not going to feel good in their hands because of the wide rim. So they're going to have to go with something different. You can look at something like the Vulture as a 10-speed, and the 10-speed rims can have a little bit where it's not a huge rim, so that distance driver feel doesn't sit there just like you want, but it also isn't small enough that it fits in your hand like a traditional fairway. The oddities of discs are part of truly the beauty of disc golf in its entirety. But with that being said, I know there are molds that I personally am just honestly not a huge fan of. While I will name some that are going to create some enemies, there are others that, you know, just kind of try to stand the test of time, but to some could be overhyped. The first coming to mind is going to be the Buzz. You can look at the Buzz as probably the most popular mid-range of all time. But I personally, the feel of a Buzz in my hand is nothing spectacular. And when I throw a Buzz, I also am not thinking anything spectacular. And before people get all offended and whatnot, I actually feel quite the same about the Rock. When I was sponsored by Innova, I kind of think that Innova's mid-ranges are the worst part of their entire lineup. But that's once again a personal opinion. There's going to be a lot of personal opinions in this video, but the reason in the heart of this video is I want to tell you why disliking a disc could actually be beneficial for your game and helping you guide and pick what's going to work best for you overall. Let's keep the spicy takes rolling. We got this guy right here, the Berg. The Berg is a 1-speed disc that lots of people are going to use for approaches. This slow speed disc is very good at allowing you to, when you don't want to throw a full shot at the basket, or even for some people why they love the Berg is because they can throw a full shot at the basket, and it allows you to approach. Now, if the Berg was the only disc that did this, then there are lots of players who would not like how the Berg feels in their hand, thus eliminating this shot from their game. But because you see players who have a disc like this who can make that shot work, if you try the Berg out and it doesn't work out for you, you can move on to other options. Say, the Polecat. The Polecat is another great option, but once again, I'm going to be one of the first people that comes to you and says that this jar of peanut butter may not actually be what fits best in your hand. For me personally, as someone who doesn't really fan grip a whole lot of stuff, and I do a lot of power grips, I love the depth of the Polecat and having this shot shaping potential for me. When I try to throw the same shot with a Berg, I find inconsistent shots out of it. But that's what's incredible, is I can play with someone like John who's going to throw the Berg the same opportunities that I'm throwing the Polecat, and we're going to achieve the same result. So based on the size of your hand, based on how you like to throw the disc, these are all factors that lean into you choosing the disc that works best for you. So let's talk about approach discs, because there are about 8 kajillion options, it feels like, when it comes to the approach disc category. One of the most popular, if not the most popular approach disc out there on the market, the Zone. This guy from Discraft is a staple in a ton of people's bags. And when it comes to throwing the Zone, something that I think you might be able to consider when it comes to you liking or disliking a disc is the depth of the disc. Some people prefer discs that are a lot deeper, some prefer the more shallow types. The Zone, for instance, I think a lot of people who throw the Zone for the first time and they haven't really tried out a bunch of other options may not realize that the Zone is actually a pretty shallow approach disc. The shallowness of the Zone actually works in its favor for a lot of people because they can throw these power up shots, these power shots, and it's not going to get hung up on their finger as they're throwing those shots because there's not a lot to it, so it can just get off. Because of this though, if you're used to more of a deeper disc, say like the Pig, For me, when I'm throwing and I'm used to throwing these deeper discs on a forehand, I really feel like I can give this one the beans and stay in the shot and pull my hand down and let it fall off of the shot and let it fall off of my finger later on in the throw. Whereas when I try to throw something like, let's say, a savior, or I try to throw this zone, what's gonna end up happening for me is I'm gonna feel like it slips off back here, so I'm not gonna get the full finished shot at the front of the throw, which is going to create those inconsistent shots and create a lack of trust, which is not what you're looking for. If you find that you're throwing a disc on a regular basis and it's not giving you the results you're looking for, you're gonna end up leaning on that disc less and less. You're gonna end up throwing it less and less. And then rather than having the right disc in your bag for the right shot, you're just gonna have a disc that's wasting space when there could be another option out there that actually helps you find what you're looking for. Another piece to consider when you're trying to decide, do I like a disc, do I not like a disc, has to be plastic options. If you're working with, let's say, a smaller manufacturer like Lone Star or even Clash, where their plastic types haven't really branched out to a huge variety, then this doesn't necessarily apply as well to those. But if we go to somewhere like Trilogy, let's look at the Judge, for instance. I have a fluid plastic Judge just sitting here on this shelf. I have a classic soft Judge. So you have a base plastic and premium plastic, but they're kind of accomplishing the exact same thing. I can then go to a lucid confetti Judge. I can move over to a fusion orbit Judge. These are just 4 cases of a Judge right here. And I'm sure as I continue to look around these shelves that we're gonna have even more base plastic Judge options. These are EMAG Judges, which is an entirely different mold in itself. Now, you may be the person that for your throwing putters, you really prefer that base plastic feel, which is a little more rubbery, has a little more grip and tack to it, so that when you wanna throw these shots, it's like, wow, this is super great. It's also cheaper, so you have the opportunity to replace it. Like this one is $14.99 versus if you go with the fluid Judge, which jumps up to $19.99, or the Gavin Rathbun Judge, which is a team series, so part of that money's going to Gavin, so that was going to be $24.99, or you can go with this Fusion Orbit, which is $21.99. So from a price standpoint, you probably have something like the Lucid Confetti or the Fusion Orbit. They're going to last a little longer, and once they get to their desired or beat-in flight path, it's going to hold that for a considerable amount of time. Whereas this classic blend moonshine or classic soft moonshine is going to beat in and change its flight a lot faster, but gonna be cheaper to replace. So you can attack this from a multitude of different standpoints. Considering Innova hates me and all pig throwers in the world, the most common blend of pigs that are out there are R Pro, which is one of the more premium plastic base plastics that Innova has, being a rubber blend. Because of that, as someone who throws his pig a lot, it loses its overstability after a couple months with as much as I play disc golf. So I have to constantly be cycling in new pigs in order to fill that slot. If they made a premium plastic one, then I would have the opportunity to maybe hold that consistent flight for a little longer. But there are going to be plenty of people out there that don't want the premium plastic one because they want that softer touch of the base plastic. We mentioned it at the beginning when it came to the Nuke, but the rim size or the rim feel in your hand can also have a drastic impact on whether you like the disc or not. For instance, the Stag, I know Michael Holt loves the Stag, throws it so incredibly well, and I tried to love the Stag. Oh, I tried to love the Stag. But this 8-speed just didn't feel amazing in my hands. And so you have an 8-speed rim versus a 7-speed rim, or the Crave, which is a 6.5. So that rim width can be very big. I know lots of folks who will love 7 and 9 speed, 7, 9, 11, and they'll stick in that every other. Or you have people that love the 6s, the 8s, and then the 10s of the Vulture, or the 12s of the Destroyers and things like that. Very much depends on what you're looking for in the rim. But when you're trying to find that disc, my best suggestions when trying to find one that works for you is to find the depth or the cut that fits best in your hand and gives you consistent results. For instance, Clash Discs makes the Cookie, which has this rounded rim on the bottom that feels so fantastic in my hand. I love how the Cookie feels, the Soda feels. Those are both that rounded on the underside rim that is just unlike anything else I've ever held, and the plastic they make it in feels so good. Because of that rounded rim, I'm a person who, if I'm not intentionally focusing on it, has a hard time throwing nose down. As Tech Disc discovered, and you saw a couple weeks ago, that is one of my biggest issues, is that I am throwing nose up. And as I continue to fix that, the rounded rim on the bottom of the soda and the cookie exaggerated that even more. So the understable soda, I couldn't get to fly on an understable flight because while it felt really good in my hand, I did not produce the results that I was looking for. So just because something feels good in your hand doesn't mean that you're gonna have good results. Conversely, just because something feels bad in your hand doesn't mean that we're going to necessarily have to write it off. You've got something like the High Flex from Lightning Discs PDGA approved rubber putter. This thing feels like a mini in terms of the consistency and quality of the plastic, but it is a full-size disc. Doesn't feel that great in my hand, but I can't be the first one to just write it off and say simply because it doesn't feel great, I should never give it a chance. The beauty of a used bin like this is the chance to try out discs at a cheaper price. Definitely see if you have a local disc shop and they have that. Another one that comes to mind is this A4 by Prodigy. Now Prodigy gets a bad rap, guys, because of the flashing and all that, but honestly a lot of their consistent stuff, their newer stuff doesn't have the flashing issues, so let's try to move past that motif, that narrative for a little while. But let's talk about the A4. You can see here on the A4, at least I hope you can, how it has this like extra rim inside of a rim. The only other place I've seen this is somewhere like the Rask from Castoplast. At first glance, I'm questioning what sane human being would design a disc like this and say, you know what? I think people are gonna like it. But then I walked around with it in my hands as I held a conversation for a little while. And the more that I held this little Frisbee and the more I got it, just, holding it, pantomiming some throws, I thought to myself, am I an A4 guy now? So you know what's going on with me? This A4. I'm gonna give it a chance and I'm gonna give it a try. I personally, the weirder the disc feels most often, ends up resonating with me on a regular basis, which is probably why I started off with the beef of the Buzz and the Rock, because they both feel pretty standard to mid-ranges, and that's just not necessarily what fits best in my hand, and it's not what I get the best results with. I've given the Buzz plenty of tries in the past. I gave the Rocks all the try while I was an Innova sponsored player. You have to find the discs that work for you. How many enemies did we create in this video? Targets we made. We talked about the Berg, definitely gonna get some hate for that. The Buzz and the Rock, definitely gonna get some hate for that. Thankfully, I don't think we took any distance driver shots, so hopefully people are feeling good about that. Stag people are gonna dislike me. The zone people are definitely gonna dislike me. Yeah, if you're still watching this and you haven't unsubscribed, I wanna say thank you. But like I said, I started this video wanting to be the scapegoat of the disc golf world for just a few minutes, just a little bit of time here, because if you are a person that you dislike a disc and you still have it in your bag, I want to give you the freedom to ask one simple question. Why? Like, who are you trying to impress? Because is it more impressive to say, hey, I've got this disc in my bag and I hate it, or every single time you pull that out, you're questioning, why do I have this in here? Why do I keep trying to trust that disc when it just may not be the right disc for you? There are so many options. We aren't operating in 2010. We aren't operating in 2004 when you really only had like 3 or 4 solid options to go for your discs. One of the best parts about this sport continuing to expand and continuing to grow is that the opportunities and options for your game can do the same. So if you don't like a disc, ask the question why and look at, is it the rim width, is it the depth, is it the plastic type? There are a multitude of reasons for you to dislike a disc. Is it quite simply the results that you get when you're throwing the disc, which could and should be just enough to have you questioning, should I try something else? So our question that we want to see in the comments is, what is a disc that you have tried to try so many times and it just doesn't work for you? We're going to workshop this real fast. John, what's a disc that you've tried to try several times and it just doesn't work for you?
The Eagle.
The Eagle by Innova. That choice of champions, John's won plenty of things. Eagle's not for him. Noah, how about you? What's a disc you've tried to try?
A Volt.
A Volt. There you go. I know Noah's a big gyro guy, so the Volt with the bendy James, all that coming out, And I remember that the Volt was what made me have a little gyro crush for a little while. Let us know in the comments what's the disc that you have tried, not for you. Super excited to see these comments. And remember, please don't hate me long term. I'm okay if you want to hate me short term for the decisions and things we said in this video. But like I said, just want to give you the freedom and the space to say what you want to say. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you so much for watching. Please make it fantastic for someone else too. But for now, we're going to leave you with the birdie.